Week number 2 of the NFL season is upon us. And last week, I did slightly above average, 9-5-1, which I will take it considering that it was week 1 and week 18, in my opinion, and maybe in a lot of other people's opinion, those are the hardest weeks to predict. Week 1, we don't know how everybody's going to come out to begin the season, and in week 18, the final week of the regular season, teams are resting players for the playoffs. Teams that aren't in contention are resting star players for next season. And it's almost like an audition for a spot on the roster next season. So I just want to say, can the NFL just stop having games end in a tie? Will they just stop being okay with it? Because tie games, they just ruin everything. And I can only imagine how angry and frustrated that fans that saw the Colts and Texans game this past week, how they felt about it ending in a tie. I will tell you what, if I spent money to go see an NFL game and it ended in a tie, I would probably lose my mind. Every other sport has a plan after one overtime period. The NHL does a shootout. College football does a second overtime, and then after that, they do 2-point plays. In basketball, they just keep going until a winner is determined. Baseball, they play extra innings, and they'll keep going until somebody wins. The NFL needs to figure it out because I am tired of seeing games end in a tie. It ruins everybody's pick'em records. It makes them look weird. So, without further ado, let's get to the Week 2 NFL predictions, as I'm hoping that I do better than I did in Week 1, which slightly above average, but I feel like it's a good record considering the circumstances. So the first game of Week 2, we begin with Thursday Night Football as always. The Chargers take on the Chiefs, and every Thursday night game for the rest of the season with the exception of Thanksgiving night, the Thursday night game will be only featured on Amazon Prime Video. Whose bright idea was that? Who wants to pay $6.99 a month to watch an NFL game? Or should I say probably 3 to 4 NFL games a month for probably 3-4 months, give or take. I don't know whose bright idea that was, but looks like I'm going to have to find a Reddit stream to see this game. But back to the matchup. The Chargers are likely to be without Keenan Allen, who left the game last week against the Raiders with a hamstring injury, while Patrick Mahomes put on an MVP performance, throwing 5 touchdown passes against the Cardinals, and the Chiefs were dominant in that game. And that game was supposed to be a shootout, but the Chiefs completely dominated from start to finish. And I think Patrick Mahomes has another big performance this week. Despite the Chargers, how their defense was being portrayed as a well-improved defense by acquiring J.C. Jackson in the offseason, I do think the Chiefs win this game. And what I noticed about the Kansas City game this weekend against Arizona, I noticed that the ball was pretty well balanced than what we were used to seeing with Tyreek Hill in that offense. So far, it has been proven that Mahomes doesn't need Tyreek Hill. The question is, can he keep it up? I think, at least for this week, I think he will. I think Kansas City wins. Moving on to the Jets and the Browns. The Browns picked up their first preseason win in years with a game-winning field goal by rookie kicker Cade York. While the Jets, you know my rule. I don't pick the Jets in games until they can show they're actually capable of winning games, then I'll consider it. So I'm going to pick the Browns as with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback versus Joe Flacco. I think this just comes down to which team runs the ball the best. I mean, both these teams, they have great 1-2 punches at running back with Breece Hall and Michael Carter for the Jets. Although I am wondering, will we see Breece Hall get more involved this week? As many people, including myself, had some excitement about Breece Hall, but Michael Carter was getting most of the work. And with the Browns, when we knew that Deshaun Watson would be suspended for the majority of the season, we knew that the Browns would be reliant on the running game. And Kareem Hunt had a big performance last week. So I think this game's just going to come down to who runs the ball the best, and I think that's going to be the Browns. Next up, we got the Commanders and the Lions. I want to pick the Lions so bad to win here. But this is hopefully the third time is the charm for Carson Wentz to establish himself as a franchise QB. Because if things don't go well this season for Wentz, then who knows what's going to happen at the quarterback position moving forward with the Commanders. Do they give Sam Howell a chance? I think it's possible that if the Commanders are nowhere near playoff contention by week 15 or 16, they'll probably just give him a chance he was made of. But Carson Wentz is off of a big performance last week, so he has confidence. And despite losing last week, the Lions, they had a little bit of confidence by competing well with the Eagles. But morale victories can only get you so far, and I'm going to pick the Commanders to win this one. Next up, we have the Buccaneers and the Saints. The Buccaneers are coming off of a dominant 19-3 win against the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. While the defense was dominant for Tampa Bay, the offense, it looked quite sluggish out there. Now, Tom Brady, he wasn't a part of the Buccaneers for the majority of the camps. He took some time off. And it's going to take him maybe 2 or 3 games to get back into things. And he goes up against the Saints on the road. And, well, since joining the Buccaneers, Tom Brady is 1-4 against the Saints. And the one win against the Saints was in the division round matchup where the Buccaneers eventually went on to win the Super Bowl. So, the Saints in the regular season, in recent memory, has been Brady's kryptonite, and I think that continues. I think the Saints upset the Buccaneers, and I think it's going to be a very close one, but the Saints are going to win this one, pull off the upset, as that is my first of, spoiler, many upsets this week. Next up, we have the Panthers and the Giants. The Giants picked up their win, the first win of the year in the season opener, against the Titans. The Titans missed a game-winning field goal as time expired, while the Panthers, they were heartbroken by losing to the Browns off of a game-winning field goal in the waning seconds of that matchup. And Baker Mayfield's revenge game was spoiled. But I do think the Panthers will bounce back and win this one, because the Giants are coming off of an emotional win, while the Panthers, they're coming off of a heartbreaker. And I can't wait to see McCaffrey and Barkley go head-to-head against each other in the running game. It's going to be an exciting game for both of them. Next up, we have the Patriots and the Steelers. And this is going to be a very low-scoring game. I think this game is going to be all about defense in this one. It's probably going to be a matchup of the first 1 to 17 wins. And I think that will be the Steelers. Now, there is some concerns with Steelers running back Najee Harris, as he did suffer an ankle sprain last week against the Bengals, but it has been reported that it's not considered that serious, as it's possible that Najee will be playing this week. In fact, based off of Najee's mentality and his toughness, I think he plays this week. And I think he'll be a difference maker as the Steelers win in a low-scoring game. Next, we have the Colts and the Jaguars. The Colts have not won in Jacksonville in a very long time. And the Colts got off to a slow start last season, but they put themselves in playoff contention, and they couldn't win in Week 18 to clinch a spot in the playoffs as their struggles in Jacksonville continued. And they will continue this week. I don't know what it is about Jacksonville with the Colts, but that struggle continues. I think the Jaguars pull off the upset. I think the Jaguars have the potential to be very underrated this season with new head coach Doug Peterson. And I would not be surprised if the Jaguars completely dominated in this matchup. Next up, we have Miami and the Ravens. The Dolphins picked up a win against the Patriots last week in what was a very low-scoring game. Well, the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, he picked up right where he left off. Now, the Dolphins, they had the right blueprint of beating Lamar Jackson and the Ravens last year, but I don't think they have it this season, as the Ravens, even though Kyle Fuller is out for the season, the Ravens, they're starting to get healthier. Are we going to see J.K. Dobbins back this week? I think Lamar, as much as the Dolphins, they made Lamar look terrible in the game last season, and the majority of Lamar's work came in garbage time, I think Lamar can carry him this week. Miami's defense, they did look legit last week, but they took on a Patriots team that has been sluggish on offense since Brady left. So I'm going with Baltimore. Next up, we have the Falcons and the Rams. And what do you know? The season just started last week, and the Falcons are already blowing fourth quarter leads. This time, a 16-point lead in the fourth quarter against the Saints. If you would have told me that the Saints would beat the Falcons by only 1 point, I would think, okay, well, the Falcons' defense really kept them in it for the majority of the game. But no, it turns out the Falcons, they were dominating the Saints. They were beating the Saints in the first 3 quarters of the game. I would have thought it was a 1-point game. Like I'd say, okay, Alvin Kamara probably didn't have the best game, which he didn't. I'd say, okay, maybe Michael Thomas didn't get targeted as much as we thought he would. It was reported he would only get about 20 to 30 snaps in that game. But Michael Thomas saw 8 targets, and he hauled in 5 catches for 2 touchdowns, which is great for fantasy because I have Michael Thomas in, I believe, at least 3 of my leagues. So I was pretty pleased to see that. And Younghoe Koo, probably the best kicker in fantasy, most reliable kicker. I don't know what the deal was with calling on long field goal opportunities to end the game this past week. We saw it with the Falcons and the Broncos, which we'll get to in a second. But once again, the Falcons just completely choked this one. Again. As they called on Younghoe Koo to attempt a 63-yard field goal attempt, which, honestly, unless you're in, like, Denver in the altitude or you're Justin Tucker, it's not even worth trying. You should have just thrown up a Hail Mary pass or something, because you got Drake London who can bring down jump balls, as well as Kyle Pitts. I don't know what it is with Atlanta, but they need to stop blowing leads in the fourth quarter. It's just really getting old. But anyway, they're going to get absolutely dominated by the Rams, as the Rams, they had a Super Bowl hangover, losing 31-10 to the Bills. But the Falcons, they are the get-right team because they'll make you get right. Stafford's going to probably have like 4 touchdown passes in this game. Kupp's probably going to hit 2 of them. We'll probably finally see an Allen Robinson breakout game for the first time since 2020, 2019. Either way, Rams, big. Seahawks and the 49ers. Trey Lance's first start of the season, well, his first start as a full-time starter, didn't work out so well. It was very off-the-field conditions, and people are starting to turn on Trey Lance, but I will give Trey Lance the benefit of the doubt here. It did feel like that the 49ers, they did want to play it a bit conservative in this game, considering what the field looked like. When I saw the images of the field, when I saw the footage of the grounds crew just trying to clean that field up, I'm like, there should be no way this game should be played today. Elijah Mitchell went down with a knee injury, as he is expect to be out for at least a month. So I can see why there was some conservatism in this game. Or maybe Justin Fields is underrated. But either way, I think the 49ers, they bounce back this week. They're at home this week against Seattle, who is coming off an emotional victory on Monday Night Football, spoiling Russell Wilson's return to Seattle. And I think Seattle, they get humped a little bit this week. Next up, we have the Bengals and the Cowboys. Now, remember last week when I said whoever lost between the Bucs and Cowboys, bet on them to win in week 2? Because there's no way the NFL wants one of their two darling teams to start off 0-2. Yeah, despite the Cowboys losing Dak Prescott for about 6 to 8 weeks, I'm still serious about that. Despite the Cowboys being, I believe it's a 7.5-point underdog in this matchup, the Cowboys, I think, are going to pull off the upset, win this game outright. Because when we look at the game from Sunday night, the Cowboys' defense, it looked good. The game could have been a lot worse than what it was if it weren't for that Cowboys defense. It was a 19-3 game, but if it weren't for that defense playing as well as it was, it could have been probably 42-3, easily. So the defense for the Cowboys, it looks good so far this season. The offense just needs to generate a spark. And now they have to turn to Cooper Rush to generate that spark out of Central Michigan. And I'm surprised that Jerry Jones hasn't made a phone call to John Lynch saying, you know what, how about I give you a second and a third round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo. As Jimmy Garoppolo, he can win games. He's demonstrated that. 2 NFC title game appearances, a Super Bowl appearance. But either way, I think the Cowboys win this one. The Bengals offensive line, we were told that it was much improved. But it still doesn't look good. Joe Burrow was sacked 7 times in that matchup. Although I will give him a little bit of a benefit of the doubt because the Steelers, I believe, led the NFL in sacks last season. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt there. But if we see this offensive line go up 7 sacks to the Cowboys, I think it's appropriate we start asking questions about the Bengals moving forward about, was this just a one-season wonder? Is Joe Burrow what we thought he was? Are the Bengals just completely overrated this season? But I am picking the Cowboys to pull off the upset because I would not be surprised. And in fact, I will not be surprised if and when the Cowboys get some calls their way, especially if this game comes down to the wire. Because I don't think they want to see America's team start off 0-2. I just don't. Next, we have the Texans and the Broncos. Nathaniel Hackett, the rookie coach, decides to send out Brandon McManus for a 64-yard field goal instead of going for it on 4th and 5. And you had all 3 timeouts left with over a minute to go, and you drained the game clock all the way down to, what was it, like 24 seconds or something, and then you waste a timeout. Yeah, I don't get that. You paid, what, $256 million for Russell Wilson just to lose to Geno Smith? I mean, good Lord. But I think the Broncos, they do recover. All in all, this should be a tune-up game for Denver. The Cardinals and the Raiders. I will be honest with you, I had a hard time deciding who was going to win this game. And I just had to flip a coin on this one because based off what I saw in week 1, I don't really know who will be the better team moving forward out of these two. But I think the better team in week 2 is going to be Arizona. But I think this is going to be the shootout of the week. And both these teams, you could argue they should have been in shootout games last week, but we saw the chemistry of Derek Carr and Devontae Adams get off to a good start. Statistically, they still lost the game. But I'm going with Arizona to win this matchup. I don't know why, I don't know what I see in Kyler Murray this season, but we'll see what happens on Sunday. That's probably going to be one of those games I get wrong. The Bears and the Packers. Aaron Rodgers had a bad game last week against the Vikings, a very underrated Vikings team. But we know what happens when Aaron Rodgers has a bad game. He ends up winning the next week, so I will pick Green Bay handily. And Monday Night Football, the Titans and the Bills. Derrick Henry had a big performance against the Bills last season on Monday Night Football, and the Bills ultimately beat themselves in that game. Instead of kicking a field goal to tie the game up, sent it to overtime, they decided to go for it on 4th and 1. And they got stopped. But the Bills got much better in the offseason, including signing Von Miller. And we saw last week how big that signing was. I think the Bills win this one. And finally, the Vikings and the Eagles. And I am going to ride the hot hand here. Justin Jefferson had 9 catches for $178 and 2 touchdowns. As he was raving the offseason, how excited he was and how he saw how Cooper Kupp got open all the time last season. And he had a big performance in week 1. I think it continues. I like the Vikings to beat the Eagles in this matchup, and that will do it for my week 2 NFL predictions. Comment your predictions down below. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. And enjoy the NFL this weekend. Glad the NFL's back.